I was on a company-wide video call with 200 employees watching when Roger Brennan, our CFO, announced he was adjusting my sales metrics retroactively for the past 6 months. This meant my commission structure would change, and I would owe the company $73,000 in overpayments. He smirked at the camera and said, "Try to keep up next time." I stayed calm, typed one word in the chat. Copy. Then I immediately opened my files and activated the MSA Reversion clause I had buried in a contract 9 months ago. I hit send. Let me back up and explain how I got here. My name is Christy, and I had been the top enterprise software sales director at TechVantage Solutions for 4 years. I was good at my job. Really good. I brought in $12 million in annual recurring revenue, year after year. I closed deals that other people said were impossible. I had relationships with chief technology officers at Fortune 500 companies who would take my call before they would take calls from their own staff. When I started at TechVantage, the compensation structure was straightforward. Base salary of $90,000, plus commission on closed deals. The commission was tiered, 8% on the first million, 12% on the next 2 million, and 15% on everything above that. It was aggressive, but it worked. I made good money, the company made great money, and everyone was happy. But 9 months before that horrible all-hands call, something changed. The company brought in Roger Brennan as the new CFO. He came from a private equity background, and his whole philosophy was about squeezing efficiency out of every corner of the business. Within his first 60 days, he had reorganized 3 departments, laid off 47 people, and renegotiated vendor contracts to save the company money. Then he turned his attention to sales compensation. Roger scheduled a meeting with all the senior sales directors. There were 5 of us. He walked us through a presentation about how our compensation structure was not aligned with company profitability metrics. He used a lot of fancy terms like EBITDA optimization and cost per acquisition ratios. What it all boiled down to was this: he wanted to change how we got paid. The other directors nodded along. They were used to corporate doublespeak. But I asked questions. How would this affect existing deals in the pipeline? Would our current year targets change? What happened to contracts we had already signed but had not yet been paid on? Roger did not like my questions. He gave me a thin smile and said we would work out the details individually. That was when I knew I needed protection. See, I had been through this before at a previous company. A new executive comes in, changes the rules midstream, and suddenly the top performers who were supposed to make $300,000 that year end up making $120,000 instead. It is legal, technically, because employment in most states is at will, but it is also completely unfair. So when my contract came up for renewal, I did something different. I hired my own attorney. Not someone from the company's approved list, but an independent contract lawyer named Marcus Webb who specialized in employment agreements. I paid him $5,000 out of my own pocket to review my contract and suggest additions. Marcus was the one who came up with the MSA Reversion clause. MSA stands for Master Service Agreement, but in this context, it was basically a protection mechanism. The language was buried in Section 12. Subsection D of my employment contract. It said that if the company unilaterally modified my compensation structure or performance metrics without my written consent, the entire agreement would revert to my original contract terms from 4 years ago. Plus, I would be entitled to triple penalty damages for breach of contract. It was insurance, and I made sure to get it in writing. The tricky part was getting the company to sign it. Marcus advised me to submit it during the busy season, when HR was processing dozens of contract renewals. He also told me to frame it as standard legal language that protected both parties. I sent the contract through the normal channels. HR reviewed it, the CFO's office stamped it with approval, and I got a signed copy back within 2 weeks. I filed it away and hoped I would never need it. But then came that all-hands call. Roger did not just announce a new compensation structure. He announced it was retroactive. He had gone back through 6 months of my closed deals and recalculated my commissions using a new formula that he created. According to his math, I had been overpaid by $73,000, and the company expected me to return it. 200 people heard him say this. My colleagues, my clients who were on the call as guests, my own team members who reported to me. He made an example out of me in the most public way possible. I could feel my face burning. My hands were shaking. But I forced myself to stay calm. I typed that single word in the chat. Copy. Then I opened my laptop, found the folder labeled Contract Insurance, and pulled up the template email Marcus had prepared for me 9 months earlier. It was a formal notice of breach and activation of the MSA Reversion clause. I filled in the dates, attached the relevant contract sections, and added the recipients. Roger Brennan, Diana Hartwell, who was the general counsel, the 6 members of the board of directors, and Marcus as my personal attorney. I read it over once. My finger hovered over the send button. This was going to blow up my entire career, I knew that. But Roger had humiliated me in front of the whole company. He had changed the rules retroactively and expected me to just accept it. I clicked send. For about 90 minutes, nothing happened. I stayed at my desk, pretending to work. But really, I was just refreshing my email every 30 seconds. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then my phone rang. It was an internal extension I did not recognize. I answered. It was Diana Hartwell, the general counsel. Her voice was cold. Christy, I need you to come to the executive conference room. Now. I grabbed my laptop and headed upstairs. My hands were still shaking. When I walked into the conference room, Roger was there. So was Diana. And so was Stephen Aldridge, the CEO. All 3 of them looked at me like I had just set the building on fire. Roger spoke first. What the hell do you think you are doing? I sat down and opened my laptop. I am exercising my contractual rights. You unilaterally changed my compensation terms without my consent. According to Section 12, subsection D of my employment agreement, that triggers the reversion clause. Diana cut in. That clause was never properly authorized. It has your signature, I said, pointing to the document on my screen. Well, the CFO office stamp, which Roger's assistant applied. Which means it was reviewed and approved. Roger's face was turning red. You buried that language in the contract hoping no one would notice. I disclosed it clearly, I said. It was reviewed by your team. If your team did not read it carefully, that is not my fault. Stephen leaned forward. He was in his early 60s, silver-haired, the kind of guy who looked like he belonged on a golf course. Christy, let's all take a breath here. I think there has been a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, I said. Roger announced on a public call that he was changing my metrics retroactively. That violates my contract. The reversion clause is now active, which means my original commission structure is reinstated. And per the penalty terms, the company owes me $219,000. The room went silent. Roger stood up. You are out of your mind if you think we are paying you that. Then I will see you in court, I said. I stood up and walked out. I made it back to my desk before my hands started shaking again. I had just threatened to sue the company I worked for. I had just gone head-to-head with the CFO and the CEO. This was either going to work or it was going to destroy me. 4 hours later, I got my answer. A security guard appeared at my desk with a HR representative I had never met before. The HR rep handed me a letter. I was terminated, effective immediately, for gross insubordination and creating a hostile work environment. The letter cited my email to the board of directors as inappropriate and claimed I had bypassed the chain of command. I was given 15 minutes to pack my personal items. The security guard stood there watching me the entire time. My company, laptop, phone, and access badge were confiscated. Every eye in the office was on me as I walked out with a cardboard box of my stuff. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried for 20 minutes. Then I called Marcus. He answered on the second ring. I saw the termination letter. They sent me a copy. Christy, this is retaliation. This is illegal. We are going to sue them into the ground. But as I drove home, all I could think was, I just lost my job. I just lost my income. I just became unemployable. And the fight was only beginning. Marcus moved fast. Within 1 week, we filed a wrongful termination lawsuit in state court. The complaint was 37 pages long and laid out everything. The MSA Reversion clause, Roger's public humiliation of me on the all-hands call, the retaliatory termination, and our demand for damages including back pay, penalty damages, emotional distress, and punitive damages. We asked for $2.4 million. I felt a surge of hope when we filed. This was going to work. We had the contract, we had the timeline. We had witnesses to the all-hands call. This was an open and shut case of retaliation. I was wrong. TechVantage's legal team, led by Diana Hartwell, filed their response 3 weeks later. It was 62 pages long, and it was brutal. Their central argument was that the MSA Reversion clause was never properly executed. They claimed that according to internal company policy, all contract modifications had to go through HR and be countersigned by the CEO. They produced a policy document, dated 2 years before my contract renewal, that clearly stated this requirement. Then they dropped the hammer. The CEO, Stephen Aldridge, submitted a sworn declaration that he had never seen or approved my contract addendum. He claimed the CFO office stamp was applied by a junior administrator who did not have authority to approve legal modifications. He said I had deliberately bypassed proper channels to slip the clause past the review process. They called it contract fraud, and they filed a countersuit. The countersuit claimed I had engaged in fraudulent misrepresentation, that I had deceived the company into signing a contract that contained unauthorized terms, and that my actions had damaged the company's reputation and operations. They were seeking $500,000 in damages. Marcus and I met in his office to go over the response. He looked tired. He had been working 18-hour days on my case. "This is bad," he said. "I am not going to sugarcoat it. They have undermined the validity of your contract." "But I got it approved," I said. "The stamp is right there. Did you get the CEO's signature?" I felt my stomach drop. "No. Just the office stamp from the CFO's team." "And you used your company email to communicate with me about the contract language?" "Yes. Why?" Marcus pulled up his laptop and showed me. TechVantage had produced email records. There were dozens of messages between me and Marcus, sent from my company email account, discussing how to structure the MSA clause and how to present it to get it approved without raising red flags. "They are arguing you used company resources and company time to commit fraud," Marcus said. "And honestly, Christy, these emails do not look good. There is one here where you literally say, 'I need to make sure this flies under the radar.'" I remembered writing that. At the time, I just meant I did not want to draw unnecessary attention to the clause. But now, in a legal context, it looked like I was trying to trick the company. "Can we fight this?" I asked. "We can try. But our case just got a lot weaker. And a lot more expensive." Marcus was right about the expensive part. By the end of the second month, I had spent $15,000 on legal fees. My savings account, which had $63,000 in it when I got fired, was down to $48,000. I had no income. I was living off credit cards. And we had not even gotten to depositions yet. I started applying for jobs. I had worked in enterprise software sales for 10 years. I had a track record. I had relationships. I thought I would get interviews easily. Instead, I got ghosted. I applied to 3 competing firms where I had good relationships with the sales VPs. All 3 expressed initial interest. Then, suddenly, radio silence. I followed up. No response. I called. Voicemail. One of my former colleagues, a guy named Tim who had left TechVantage a year earlier to join one of those companies, finally called me back. "Christy, I am going to be straight with you," he said. Roger has been making calls. He is telling people you are litigious, that you committed contract fraud, and that you are unstable. No one wants to touch you right now. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. He is lying. I am suing because they fired me illegally. I believe you, Tim said. But it does not matter. The rumor is out there. You are radioactive. I applied to 37 companies over the next 2 months. I got 0 offers. Not even first-round interviews. My professional reputation, which I had spent 10 years building, was destroyed. And the legal bills kept mounting. By month 3, I had spent another $12,000. My savings were down to $36,000. I was having panic attacks in the middle of the night. I would wake up at 3 in the morning, heart racing, unable to breathe, thinking about how everything was falling apart. Then Marcus called with worse news. They filed an amended complaint, he said. They are adding breach of fiduciary duty. They are claiming you used your position as a senior director to defraud the company. And they are increasing their damages demand to $500,000. $500,000? I could barely say the words. Marcus, I do not have that kind of money. I know. Which is why they sent a settlement offer. He forwarded me the email. TechVantage was willing to drop everything if I dropped my lawsuit. Signed a non-disclosure agreement. Admitted no wrongdoing on their part. And paid them $50,000. They want me to pay them? I said. After everything they did to me? It is a lowball offer, Marcus said. But Christy, I have to be honest with you. If we go to trial and lose, you could be on the hook for their full claim plus legal fees. That could be close to $1 million. I sat in my apartment, staring at the settlement offer on my laptop screen. $50,000. That was almost everything I had left in savings. If I paid it, I would have nothing. But if I did not, I could lose everything and then some. I called my mom. She answered on the first ring. She had been calling me every day since I got fired, worried out of her mind. Mom, I do not know what to do, I said. And then I started crying. I told her everything. The lawsuit, the countersuit, the settlement offer, the legal bills. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Christy, maybe it is time to just walk away. Your health is more important than this fight. Even my own mother thought I should give up. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Roger's smirk on that all-hands call. I kept thinking about how he humiliated me in front of 200 people. I kept thinking about how he was getting away with it. But I also thought about the $50,000. About starting over. About ending this nightmare. I was drowning, and there was no lifeline in sight. 3 months after I was fired, I was working part-time at a retail store in the mall. $18 an hour, 25 hours a week. It was all I could find. I would stand at the register, scanning clothes and folding sweaters, while customers yelled at me about return policies. My apartment lease was up for renewal. The rent was going up by $200 a month. I could not afford it. I started looking at cheaper places, but even studio apartments in bad neighborhoods were $1,500 a month. I was looking at moving back in with my parents in Ohio. I was 34 years old, and I was about to move back into my childhood bedroom. My credit cards were maxed out. $23,000 across 3 cards. The minimum payments alone were eating up most of my retail paycheck. My credit score had dropped 140 points. I was barely eating. I had lost 20 pounds. I would wake up every morning with a knot in my stomach that would not go away. Some days, I could not get out of bed. I would just lie there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how completely my life had fallen apart. Marcus called me with an update on the case. We were scheduled for depositions in 6 weeks. He needed to depose Roger, Stephen, and Diana. They were going to depose me. The legal fees for that round alone would be another $20,000. I do not have $20,000, I told him. There was a pause. Christy, I need to talk to you about something. I have been working on your case for 5 months now. My firm has billed about $42,000 total. You have paid $15,000. The rest I have been carrying on contingency, hoping we would win and collect from TechVantage. But with the way this case is going, I am not confident we are going to win. I felt my chest tighten. What are you saying? I need a retainer to continue. $75,000. Marcus, I do not have $75,000. I do not have $75. He was quiet for a moment. Then I am going to have to withdraw from the case. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. You are abandoning me? I am not abandoning you. I am a small firm. I cannot carry a case this size without payment. I am sorry, Christy. I really am. He filed a motion to withdraw 2 days later. The judge granted it. I was now representing myself. I had never been to law school. I did not know how to take a deposition. I did not know the rules of evidence. I did not know how to file motions or responses. I spent hours in the law library at the courthouse, reading books about civil procedure, trying to teach myself how to be a lawyer. It was hopeless. And then it got worse. TechVantage filed another lawsuit. This time, they sued me personally for tortious interference with business relationships. They claimed that my fraudulent contract attempt had caused them to lose a major client, and they were seeking $1.2 million in damages. The lawsuit was filed in federal court. It was all over the business news. A journalist from a tech industry publication wrote an article with the headline, "Tech Sales Director Accused of Contract Fraud Against Former Employer." The article included my name and my photo, which they pulled from my LinkedIn profile. The article was heavily biased toward TechVantage's version of events. It made me sound like a con artist who had tried to cheat her employer. The article got shared on social media. My LinkedIn inbox was flooded with messages. Some were supportive, but most were hateful. People called me a liar, a fraud, a thief. Someone dug up my home address and posted it in a comment thread. I started getting threatening emails. I deleted all my social media accounts. I changed my phone number. I stopped leaving my apartment except to go to work. My family was falling apart too. My dad called me, his voice shaking. "Christy, you need to settle this. You need to make this go away. This is destroying you." My younger sister stopped talking to me. She sent me one text. "I am embarrassed to share a last name with you right now." Then she blocked my number. Only my mom kept calling. But even she was running out of things to say. Our conversations got shorter and shorter. I could hear the worry in her voice. She suggested gently that maybe I should see a therapist. Maybe I should consider medication for the anxiety. I could not afford therapy. I could not afford medication. I could barely afford food. I sat alone in my apartment one night, the lights off, just staring at the wall. I had lost everything. My career, my savings, my reputation, my family's support, my mental health. I thought about Roger, sitting in his corner office, probably laughing about how thoroughly he had destroyed me. I thought about just giving up. Just letting them win by default. Just walking away and disappearing. Maybe I could move to a different state. Change my name. Start over. I was completely defeated, and Roger had won. 6 months after I was fired, I was at absolute rock bottom. I was still working at the retail store, but my hours had been cut to 15 per week. I was making about $270 every 2 weeks. My credit cards were maxed, and I was missing payments. Collection agencies were calling me constantly. My credit score was in the low 500s. My apartment lease ended, and I could not renew it. I moved into a month-to-month studio in a building where the elevator did not work, and I could hear my neighbors fighting through the walls. The rent was $950, but the place was a dump. It smelled like mildew, and the shower barely worked. I was deeply depressed. Some days I could not get out of bed. I called in sick to work so many times that my manager sat me down and told me I was on thin ice. One more absence, and I would be fired. I had stopped fighting the lawsuits. I was supposed to be preparing for depositions and filing responses to motions, but I just could not do it anymore. I would open the legal documents and just stare at them, unable to process the words. My brain felt foggy all the time. Then Roger decided to go for the kill. I got served with another lawsuit. This one named me personally and was filed by both TechVantage and Roger Brennan individually. They were suing for tortious interference with business relationships, claiming my actions had caused them to lose a major client worth $3 million in annual revenue. They were seeking $1.2 million in damages. The lawsuit included a detailed narrative about how my fraudulent contract scheme had become public knowledge in the industry and how one of TechVantage's largest clients had terminated their contract because they did not trust the company's internal controls anymore. They blamed me for the lost revenue. The lawsuit was filed in federal court with a press release. The press release was picked up by multiple business news outlets. Bloomberg ran a story. Forbes ran a story. TechCrunch ran a story. All of them painted me as a villain. The Forbes article was the worst. It went into detail about my career, my lawsuit, the fraud allegations. It included quotes from anonymous sources at TechVantage saying I had always been difficult, that I had a reputation for bending rules, that my termination had been a long time coming. The article included my full name, my age, and my photo. Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times on social media. My LinkedIn profile, which I had kept up because I was still technically looking for work, was bombarded with hateful messages and comments. People I had never met were calling me a scam artist. Someone found an old photo of me at a company conference and posted it with a caption, "This is what a corporate con artist looks like." I deactivated LinkedIn. But the damage was done. My name was permanently associated with fraud. If anyone Googled me, this is what they would find. I called my dad, hoping for some support. Instead, he begged me to settle. "Christy, please. You have to end this. You have to make this go away. Your mother is having panic attacks. Your sister will not come to family dinners because she does not want to talk about it. This is tearing our family apart. Dad." "I did not do anything wrong," I said. My voice sounded hollow, even to me. "It does not matter anymore," he said. "What matters is that you are destroying yourself. Please, just settle." I hung up. I sat on the floor of my apartment and cried until I could not breathe. The next day, I got an email from my sister. Not a text this time, because she had blocked my number months ago. An email. It said, "Stop being selfish. Mom is on blood pressure medication because of you. Just admit you messed up and move on. You are embarrassing all of us." I did not respond. I just deleted the email. But that night, I sat alone in my dark apartment, and I realized something. I had lost. Completely and totally lost. Roger had destroyed my career, my finances, my reputation, and my family relationships. He had crushed me so thoroughly that even the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally wanted me to give up. I thought about the settlement offer again. It was still on the table, technically. $50,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. I had only about $11,000 left in savings, so I would have to borrow the rest. Maybe from my parents. Maybe a personal loan if anyone would even give me one at this point. I opened my laptop and pulled up the settlement documents. My finger hovered over the keyboard. All I had to do was type out an acceptance email. Just a few words. I agree to the settlement terms, and this nightmare would be over. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was just the last tiny spark of fight left in me. I thought about Roger's smirk on that all-hands call. I thought about how he had humiliated me in front of everyone. I thought about how he was sitting in his office right now, probably celebrating how completely he had broken me. I closed the laptop without sending the email. I did not know what I was going to do. I did not have a plan. I did not have any options left, but I could not bring myself to give him the satisfaction of my surrender. I was defeated. But I was not quite ready to admit it yet. I was sitting in my apartment, staring at another stack of legal documents I could not afford to respond to, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer. I had been getting calls from debt collectors all week. But something made me pick up. Is this Christy? A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. Yes. Who is this? My name is Julia Morrison. I used to work at Tech Vantage. I saw the news article about your lawsuit. I need to talk to you. We met at a coffee shop the next day. Julia was in her early 40s, well-dressed, confident. She looked like someone who had landed on her feet after leaving Tech Vantage. I was fired 3 years ago, she said. Once we both had our coffee, Roger did the same thing to me that he did to you. I felt my chest tighten. What do you mean? I was a senior account executive. I closed a huge deal. $7 million over 3 years. It was the biggest contract in my division that year. I was supposed to get a massive commission, almost $200,000. And Roger changed the metrics. He said the deal did not meet profitability thresholds because of the discount I gave the client to close it. He recalculated my commission using a new formula he invented. I ended up getting $38,000 instead of $200,000. I felt sick. That is exactly what he did to me. I know. When I pushed back, he made my life hell. He audited all my expense reports. He questioned every deal I closed. He made me submit weekly reports justifying my activities. It was harassment. After 6 months, I could not take it anymore. I resigned. Did you sue? She shook her head. They made me sign a separation agreement with a non-disclosure clause. They gave me 6 months of severance and health insurance if I agreed not to sue and not to disparage the company. I was exhausted. I just wanted it to be over. So I signed. Then why are you talking to me now? Are you not violating your NDA? Technically, yes. But I am willing to risk it. Because Roger is still doing this. He is still destroying people's careers. And someone needs to stop him. Over the next hour, Julia told me everything. How Roger had a system. He would wait until someone closed a big deal or hit a major milestone. Then he would find a way to claw back their commission or change their compensation structure. The money he saved went into something called a discretionary performance fund that he controlled. What does he use the fund for? I asked. That is the thing. No one really knows. It is supposed to be for executive bonuses and strategic initiatives. But the amounts do not add up. 3 years ago, when I was still there, the fund had about $400,000 in it. There is no way he is paying out that much in bonuses. You think he is embezzling? I think he is doing something shady. I do not have proof. But when I left, I copied some financial documents. Just in case I ever needed them. She pulled out a thumb drive from her purse and slid it across the table. What is on this? Spreadsheets showing the discretionary fund. Payroll records. Commission recalculations. I kept everything. I stared at the thumb drive. This could be the evidence I needed. Proof of a pattern. Proof that Roger had done this to other people. Julia, why are you doing this? You could get sued for violating your NDA. She looked at me with something like sadness in her eyes. Because I read that article about you. I saw your photo. And I thought, that could have been me. If I had not signed that agreement, if I had tried to fight, he would have destroyed me too. You are braver than I was. You did not give up, so I want to help you. Over the next 2 weeks, Julia introduced me to 2 other former Tech Vantage employees. Brandon Hayes, who had been a sales director in the enterprise division, and Alicia Porter, who had been a regional manager. Both of them had similar stories. Big deals, changed metrics, clawed back commissions. Both of them had been forced out. Both of them had signed separation agreements with NDAs. We met at Brandon's house. The 4 of us sat around his kitchen table, comparing notes. The pattern was undeniable. Roger had been doing this for years. At least 6 people that we knew of. Probably more. We need to go public with this, I said. We need to show that this is not just about me. This is systematic fraud. We cannot, Alicia said. We signed NDAs. If we testify or make public statements, TechVantage will sue us. Then we find another way. We gather the evidence and we give it to the right people. Regulators, investigators. We make this bigger than just a wrongful termination case. Brandon shook his head. Christy, we all have jobs now. We have families. We cannot risk getting dragged into your lawsuit. I am sorry. I looked at Julia. She bit her lip. I want to help. But I am scared. If they sue me, I will lose everything. I have already lost everything, I said quietly. I have nothing left to lose. That night, I went home with Julia's thumb drive. I plugged it into my laptop and started going through the files. There were hundreds of documents, spreadsheets showing commission calculations, payroll records showing how money was moved into the discretionary fund, email threads where Roger discussed adjusting performance metrics. This was it. This was the evidence that could prove Roger had been systematically defrauding employees. I worked through the night, organizing everything. I was going to file a motion with the court. I was going to show the judge that this was not just about my contract. This was about a pattern of behavior. At 3 a.m, I finally crawled into bed, feeling hopeful for the first time in months. When I woke up, I had 12 new emails. My heart sank when I saw the subject line of the first one. It was from Diana Hartwell, TechVantage's general counsel. Cease and desist. We have been informed that you have been meeting with former employees in violation of witness tampering statutes. Any further contact will result in additional legal action. I scrolled down. Julia had received the same letter. So had Brandon and Alicia. Julia called me, crying. They know we met. Someone told them. Christy, they are threatening to sue me for violating my NDA. I cannot do this. I am sorry. I cannot help you anymore. Brandon sent me a text. Do not contact me again. I cannot be involved in this. Alicia blocked my number. Just like that, my allies were gone. The evidence I had was compromised because TechVantage would argue I had obtained it through witness tampering. And now I faced additional charges. I sat on my couch staring at Julia's thumb drive. I had been so close. For one brief moment, I had thought I could actually win. But Roger had found out. He had scared them off. And now I was alone again, with even more legal problems than before. 2 weeks before the trial was scheduled to begin, I was a mess. I had lost 30 pounds. My hair was falling out from stress. I would wake up multiple times a night with panic attacks. I was preparing to represent myself in federal court against a team of corporate lawyers, and I knew I was going to lose. I spent every spare hour at the law library, trying to prepare. I had no idea what I was doing. I did not know how to make opening statements or cross-examine witnesses or object to evidence. I was going to walk into that courtroom and get destroyed. But something strange happened. I got an email to my personal account. No subject line, no message, just a link to a shared drive folder. I clicked on it, my hand shaking. The folder was labeled Internal Audit Reports, TechVantage 2015 to 2022. Inside were dozens of PDF files. Official audit reports from the company's internal audit department. I opened the first one. It was from 2017. There was a section flagged in yellow highlighting irregularities in the discretionary performance fund. The auditor noted that money was being moved into the fund, but there was inadequate documentation for how it was being spent. The auditor recommended a full review. I opened another report. 2018. Same thing. More flags about the discretionary fund. Questions about unauthorized transfers. A note that said concerns were raised with the CFO and CEO, but were not adequately addressed. I opened every single file. Year after year, the internal auditor had been flagging the same problems. And year after year, nothing had been done. At the bottom of the last report, I saw a name. T. Reynolds, Chief Internal Auditor. I did a search. Teresa Reynolds. She had retired from TechVantage 2 years ago. I found her on social media. She lived about 40 minutes away. I sent her a message explaining who I was and asking if we could meet. She responded within an hour. Yes, let's talk. We met at a coffee shop near her house. Teresa was in her early 80s, small and thin with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She ordered a black coffee and got right to the point. You are the one suing Roger Brennan, she said. Yes. Good. That man is a crook. I felt my heart start to race. Can you tell me what happened? Teresa leaned forward. I was the internal auditor at TechVantage for 22 years. My job was to review financial controls and flag problems. For 7 years, I flagged Roger's discretionary fund. Every year, I wrote reports saying the fund was not being managed properly. Money was going in, but there was no clear documentation of where it was going out. I recommended a full forensic audit. What happened? Roger blocked it. He told me the fund was approved by the board, and I did not have authority to question executive compensation decisions. But I kept pushing. I kept writing reports. I kept escalating to the CEO, Stephen Aldridge? Yes, and that is when I found out Stephen was in on it. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. What do you mean? Stephen was getting kickbacks from the fund. I found wire transfers going from the fund to a consulting LLC that Stephen controlled. Over 6 years, he got about $800,000. Do you have proof? She nodded. I kept copies of everything. Bank records, wire transfer receipts, emails. I was going to go to the board with it. But before I could, I was forced into early retirement. They fired you? They called it a retirement package. They said I had worked long enough and it was time to enjoy my golden years. But they made it clear that if I did not accept the package, they would find a reason to terminate me. So I took the money and left. But you kept the documents. I kept everything. I knew someday someone would need them. She pulled a thumb drive out of her purse and handed it to me. This is everything. Wire transfers showing money moving from the fund to Stephen's LLC. Emails between Roger and Stephen discussing how to hide the transfers. Audit reports that were suppressed. All of it. I held the thumb drive like it was made of gold. Teresa. This could blow the whole case open. This proves Roger was not just changing metrics. He was embezzling. And Stephen was helping him. I know. Which is why I want you to use it. Take these people down. I thanked her and drove home, my hands shaking the whole way. That night, I went through every file on the thumb drive. It was all there. 7 years of financial fraud. Roger had been stealing from the company. He had been clawing back employee commissions and funneling the money into his discretionary fund. Then he had been paying himself and Stephen through fake consulting fees. The total amount was over $2 million. This was not just a wrongful termination case anymore. This was securities fraud. This was embezzlement. This was a federal crime. I spent the next 72 hours organizing everything into a formal complaint. I was going to file a qui tam lawsuit under the False Claims Act. It was a whistleblower lawsuit that would allow me to report the fraud to the Securities and Exchange Commission and potentially recover damages on behalf of the government. I filed the SEC complaint at 4 a.m, 3 days before the trial was supposed to start. I named Roger Brennan, Stephen Aldridge, and Diana Hartwell as participants in a scheme to defraud the company and its shareholders. Then I waited. The next afternoon, my phone rang. It was Diana Hartwell. Her voice was different, not cold and professional like usual. She sounded scared. Christy, we need to talk. About what? A settlement. We are prepared to offer you $3 million. Full release of all claims. Mutual non-disclosure agreement. We drop our countersuit. You drop everything. $3 million. 6 months ago, I would have been thrilled with 50,000. Now, they were offering 3 million. Why the sudden change? I asked, even though I knew. We want to resolve this matter quickly and avoid further litigation. You are terrified of the SEC investigation. There was a pause. The offer is on the table for 24 hours. After that, we are going to trial. I was about to respond when she said something that made my blood run cold. Christy, you should also know that if you do not settle, we are prepared to file a lawsuit against your father's company. He did some contract work for us 2 years ago. We believe there were quality control issues that breached the contract terms. We will be seeking $500,000 in damages. My father owned a small manufacturing company. He employed 30 people. $500,000 would bankrupt him. You are threatening my family. I am informing you of our legal options. She hung up. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone. They were offering me $3 million. But if I did not take it, they were going to destroy my parents. I had been fighting for 8 months. I had lost everything. My career, my savings, my reputation, my mental health. I had been humiliated and broken and pushed to the edge of suicide. But now I finally had the evidence to destroy them. I could expose Roger and Stephen and Diana. I could show the world what they had done. I could get justice. But it would cost my parents everything. I sat there for 3 hours, unable to move. The choice was impossible. Take the money and let them win. Or keep fighting and watch my family suffer. At 2 a.m, I made my decision. I walked into the federal courthouse on the day of the trial. I had not slept in 36 hours. My hands were shaking. But I was ready. The courtroom was nearly empty. Just me, the judge, TechVantage's legal team, Roger, Stephen, and Diana. No jury. This was a pre-trial hearing to resolve some procedural motions. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Langford. She had a reputation for being no-nonsense and impatient with corporate lawyers. Diana stood up to make her opening argument about why my case should be dismissed. She was about 2 minutes into her speech when the courtroom doors opened. 3 people in dark suits walked in. Federal agents. They walked straight to the defense table. The lead agent pulled out a badge. Roger Brennan, Stephen Aldridge, Diana Hartwell. You are hereby served with subpoenas for the United States Securities and Exchange Commission investigation into financial fraud at TechVantage Solutions. You are required to preserve all documents and communications related to the Discretionary Performance Fund and employee compensation modifications. Roger's face went white. Stephen stood up, stammering something about needing to call his lawyer. Diana just froze. The agent turned to Judge Langford. Your Honor, the SEC requests that this trial be postponed pending the outcome of our investigation. Judge Langford looked at me. Miss Christie, do you have any objection? I stood up. My voice was steady. No objection, Your Honor. Then this matter is postponed indefinitely. We are adjourned. I walked out of that courtroom with my head high for the first time in 8 months. The SEC investigation moved fast. Within 1 week, the story broke in the Wall Street Journal. Tech company executives accused of embezzling millions through commission fraud scheme. The article detailed everything. Roger's discretionary fund. Stephen's kickbacks. The 7 years of suppressed audit reports. TechVantage's stock price dropped 32% in 1 day. The board of directors held an emergency meeting. Roger was suspended. So was Stephen. So was Diana. An independent forensic audit was ordered. It took 3 weeks. The auditors confirmed everything Teresa and I had alleged. Roger had embezzled $2.3 million over 6 years. Stephen had received $800,000 in kickbacks. They had systematically defrauded at least 11 employees by changing their compensation metrics and keeping the clawed-back commissions. Roger was arrested. So was Stephen. They were charged with wire fraud, securities fraud, and embezzlement. Both of them faced up to 20 years in federal prison. Diana was not arrested, but she was disbarred for her role in covering up the scheme. TechVantage's board fired all three of them and hired a crisis management firm to try to salvage the company's reputation. And then they called me. The new CEO was a woman named Linda Garrison, brought in from outside to clean up the mess. She offered me a settlement, $4.7 million. Full release of all claims. No non-disclosure agreement. A public apology from the company. I accepted. The SEC also granted me a whistleblower award, $650,000 for providing information that led to a successful enforcement action. My legal fees were fully covered as part of the settlement. Within 1 month, I had gone from being broke and broken to having over $5 million. But more importantly, I had my reputation back. The Wall Street Journal ran a follow-up article with the headline, "Whistleblower Exposes Multi-million-dollar Fraud at Tech Firm." The article told my side of the story. It described how I had been retaliated against for activating a contract clause, how I had been publicly humiliated and professionally destroyed, how I had kept fighting even when I had nothing left. I started getting calls from recruiters, from companies that wanted to hire me, from law firms that wanted to represent whistleblowers, and needed someone who understood corporate fraud from the inside. A major tech company offered me a senior vice president position, base salary of $350,000 plus equity. I accepted. My LinkedIn, which I reactivated, was flooded with messages of support. Former colleagues reached out to apologize for ghosting me. Industry contacts wanted to reconnect. My family called. My dad cried on the phone. He told me he was sorry for doubting me. My sister sent a long email apologizing for cutting me off. My mom just kept saying, "I knew you could do it, honey. I always knew." Julia called me. She was crying. "You did it. You actually did it. You beat them." "We did it," I said. "Without your thumb drive, I never would have known where to look." She laughed through her tears. I am just glad someone finally stopped him. 6 months later, I started my new job. I also started a non-profit foundation to help employees fight wrongful termination and corporate fraud. I wanted to make sure that other people in my situation had the resources and support I did not have. I also started speaking at conferences about whistleblower protections and corporate accountability. I told my story over and over. Not because I wanted attention, but because I wanted people to know that fighting back was possible. That even when you lose everything, even when everyone tells you to give up, even when the system is designed to crush you, you can still win if you refuse to surrender. Roger was convicted on all counts. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution. Stephen got 12 years. Diana lost her law license and her career. I keep a framed copy of my original MSA Reversion clause on the wall in my new office. Not because I am proud of outsmarting them, but because it reminds me that preparation matters, that protecting yourself matters, that having the courage to stand up to bullies matters. The truth is, the system is designed to make people like me give up. Companies have endless resources. They have teams of lawyers. They can afford to drag out lawsuits for years, bleeding you dry financially and emotionally, until you just cannot fight anymore. They count on you being too tired, too broke, too scared to keep going. Roger counted on that. He had done it to at least 11 people before me. He humiliated them, changed the rules, clawed back their money, and then crushed them when they tried to fight back. Most of them settled. Most of them signed NDAs. Most of them walked away broken. But I did not. Not because I was braver or stronger. I was terrified the entire time. I had panic attacks. I cried myself to sleep. I lost 30 pounds. I almost gave up 100 times. But I kept going. Because I documented everything. Because I built in protections. Because I found allies. Because I refused to let Roger win just because the fight was hard. That is the lesson I want people to take from this. Document everything. Every email, every conversation, every change to your compensation or your metrics or your role. Keep copies on personal drives. Build protections into your contracts. And if you have to fight, do not fight alone. Find the other victims. Find the evidence. Find the people who are willing to help. Justice is not fast. It took me 8 months to get from that humiliating all-hands call to vindication. 8 months of hell. But it was real. And it was worth it. I am not special. I am just someone who refused to let a bully win. And if I can do it, so can you. One last thing. A lot of people ask me what I would say to Roger if I ever saw him again. The truth is, I do not think about him anymore. He is in prison. He lost everything. His career, his reputation, his freedom. And I got to rebuild my life bigger and better than before. That is the best revenge. Not confrontation, not anger. Just living well while the people who tried to destroy you face the consequences of their own actions. So if you are in a situation like I was, if you are facing retaliation or injustice or corporate fraud, I want you to know this. You are not alone. Document everything. Find allies. Do not give up. The system wants you to quit, but you do not have to. And if you are the CFO reading this, the one who thinks you can adjust metrics retroactively, and humiliate your top performer on an all-hands call, just remember, some of us know how to read contracts, and some of us are willing to fight back. I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever faced retaliation at work? Have you ever had to stand up to someone more powerful than you? What would you have done in my situation? Leave a comment below and let me know your story. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button. It helps more people find this story and know they are not alone in their fights. And if you want to hear more stories about standing up to corporate bullies and workplace injustice, subscribe to the channel. I share these stories because I believe in holding powerful people accountable and empowering everyone else to do the same. Finally, please share this with anyone who might need to hear it. Someone in your life might be going through something similar right now, and knowing they are not alone could make all the difference. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it gave you hope, or strength, or just the reminder that justice is possible even when it feels impossible. Keep fighting, keep documenting, and never let the bullies win.